congratulate workshop participants. We are glad that in this difficult period for Ukraine, we have the opportunity to report at this conference. We want to present a report on the topic Application of Environmental Biological Monitoring in Environmental Risk Management of the Fuel and Energy Complex. Every year, there is an increase in the consumption of oil, natural gas, and electricity in the world due to constant urbanization and technogenesis. In particular, only in Ukraine for domestic needs by 2030, oil consumption is predicted to increase by 1.5 times, coal by 2 times, and electricity by 2.2 times. Each element of the fuel and energy complex belongs to the category of environmental hazardous and has a negative impact on the environment, including a direct and indirect impact on the health. These objects are a source of chemical and physical pollution or local, regional, and global levels of air, soil, surface, and underground water, the cause of climate change, the greenhouse effect, acid rain, smoke, global warming, as well as the reduction of biological diversity. In addition to a number of chemicals toxic to the environment, such as heavy metals, petroleum products, acid oxides, the level of electromagnetic noise and vibration pollution in the environment increases during the operation of fuel and energy complex facilities. The main objectives of research: to establish the environmental policy principles of the fuel and energy complex, which should create conditions for preventing the consequences of its influence, to propose the concept of environmental risk management for the fuel and energy complex objects, to conduct a taxonomic and biomorphic plants characterization under the pollution conditions from the Bushten thermal power station, to evaluate the types of vegetation cover diversity, its vital state distribution in the territory around one of the largest industrial enterprises of the fuel and energy complex of Ukraine, the Bushten thermal power plant, to identify the most promising plant indicators of the territory's ecological state around the Bushten thermal power station, with the aim of introducing them into the system of ecological monitoring of territories located near powerful energy facilities. According to the date of the Department of Labor Protection, Environmental and Industrial Policy of Naftogaz of Ukraine, intensive work is currently underway in the direction of integration into the European energy community. The specified activity will minimize environmental risk during production activities and increase the level of environmental safety. Such positive trends will provide an opportunity to improve the company's international image and increase investment attraction. The spheres of influence considered within the framework of the HSE policy are of primary importance for the fuel and energy industry, and compliance with the guiding principles of safety and environmental protection is mandatory and dictated by the internal policy of most corporations. The implementation of the HSE policy makes it possible to define the principles by which operations are carried out and risks are controlled throughout the industrial cycle. Figure shows the process of risk assessment and management in the system of HSE. Parameters and methods of environmental risk determination, possible natural indicators of damage, that is, the number of victims and destroyed objects, the amount of the lost harvest, possible dimensions of natural resources, deterioration quality, ecosystem degradation, the possible level natural environments pollution. Environmental risk assessment, which is predictive in nature, is carried out by 3 main methods: methods of analogy, comparison with other similar objects, and the comparison is made according to the same parameters, according to statistical data based on similar phenomena that have already happened, in a theoretical way that is maintained by mathematical modeling. In order to determine the optimal method of environmental risk assessment, it is necessary to take into account the origin of negative impact factors, processes in the ecological system that suffer damage, the final stage of the ecosystem. Depending on the level, there are features of environmental risk analysis, which are presented in the table. The above indicates the need for an integrated approach to ecological and economic risk assessment at the cross-border level. The risk assessment methodology in the spatial context should be based on the compliance of its principles with European directives and be oriented towards the transformation of national environmental protection legislation. On the slide, is presented the concept of risk management of the fuel and energy complex. The research was carried out under the influence of the Bushten thermal power station located in the Ivano-Frankivsk region. Within the radius of up to 1 kilometer from the source of pollution, 7 monitoring sites with an area of 25 square meter have been laid. The species composition of phytocyanosis, abundance, family membership, and life forms are analyzed within each site. All types of plants are divided into 3 groups depending on the constancy coefficient value. The constancy class of each species is determined according to the scheme. Under the influence of Bushten thermal power station, 45 species of herbaceous plants and 1 tree species belonging to 18 families are recorded in the monitoring areas. The dominant family is Asteraceae, represented by 17 species, Fabaceae and Poaceae by 5 species each. The family Hypericaceae is represented by 3 species of plants, Rosaceae, Plantagenaceae, and Apiaceae by 2 species. The rest of the families in the monitoring areas have 1 representative of the plant species each. In the conditions of the monitoring sites, a relatively uniform diversity of plant cover is noted, with the lowest phytocyanotic diversity, 63%. The number of plant species varies between 10 and 16, the number of families between 5 and 9. Phytocyanotic diversity under Bushten thermal power station influence is represented by all classes of constancy. The 5th class of constancy includes 2 species of Achillea millefolium and Tichorium intybus, which are expedient to use in phytomonitoring of complex pollution areas from the fuel and energy complex facilities. The species Artemisia vulgaris, Lotus corniculatus, Daucus carota have medium biological indicative potential, and the species Medica gossativa, Trifolium protensa, Centaura Yasea, Erigerum annus, Arctium tomentosum, Hypericum perforatum have a low monitoring capacity. Half of the species belong to the 1st class of constancy, so they cannot be used for biological indicative purposes. Plants that can be used as indicators of environmental condition under Bushten thermal power station influence. The fuel and energy complex exert a constant influence on the environment components, working personnel, and the population of the surrounding territories, which obliges these enterprises to systematically apply environmental risk management and develop an effective environmental policy for this industry. The basis for the effective environmental management formation of the enterprises is the HSE policy, which in the first place determines the provision of safe working conditions and preservation of health and minimization of the environmental impact. The concept of environmental risk management in the field is presented. Among the environmental risk assessment parameters in the condition of the fuel and energy complex, the deterioration of the natural resource quality and the ecosystem's degradation and the population possible levels of natural environments are highlighted. The biological indicative potential of Achillea millefolium and Tichorium intybus under the influence of pollution from the Bushten thermal power station is established. It is established that only 10% of all phytocyanosis types that exist under the influence of the industrial enterprise show high resistance to pollution under the operation conditions of the Bushten thermal power station. Significant diversity of plant species in the area of the enterprise influence indicate the natural potential of this ecosystem vegetation for self-preservation. However, the small representativeness of plant species indicates a significantly weakened reproductive potential in stressful resistance conditions. In general, in unfavorable growth conditions, plants direct their energy resources to self-maintenance, and the processes of self-reproduction in these conditions of existence are suppressed. Thank you for attention.